Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to a fresh episode of GTF, Gabriel Talks Football. My name is Aldo Gandia, and before we get started, I want to remind people who are loyal listeners of this show that the Barroom Draft Exclusives has opened, and that's Greg Gabriel and Danny Shimon providing detailed scouting reports on dozens of college prospects the Bears might be interested or maybe not in the eyes of Greg. So let me play a little promo for you, and then we'll bring Greg on.
What I liked about him when I saw him in person at the East-West.
So I think this kid gives you a lot of potential in terms of what you're looking for up front.
I see him in the Bears offense as a Z or a slot receiver, not the X, because they want the real big guy playing the X.
You know, he could be sitting out there in the third round, and you could be getting a guy that could be your situational pass rusher.
I think he's a perfect fit for what I've been told the Bears are looking for.
This is my three techniques for the Bears, especially if you don't take a guy like Jalen Carter at the top of the draft. This would be a nice pickup. Fits perfectly in the system.
My gut feeling is this would not be a guy the Bears would take.
It's a good name because that's a guy that I'm intrigued by. Obviously, here with the Bears, you know, defensive line, defensive front is a huge need.
I think he's the best center in this draft.
I got to tell you, for this upcoming draft, which I've been saying is going to be historical for weeks, months maybe, and I have never been as prepared for an upcoming draft as I am for this one, and that's primarily because of the work of Danny Shimon and this man, Greg Gabriel. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing real good. How about you?
Really, really good. We knocked out how many? Another dozen or so players the other day that will be posted shortly.
Yeah. As far as I go, I'm over 80. I know that.
Yep, 80 recordings already.
You know, if there's players that jump out at the combine at the end of this week and outperform expectations, because don't forget, I always say that. You know, you're going to see workout start on Thursday. Around Saturday, you're going to start seeing that Joe Schmo just jumped 2 rounds at the combine. Okay, doesn't happen. You know, all it does is like, okay, red flag, and maybe it's a yellow flag or whatever, but just let's go back and check what we have on this guy and make sure it's the right thing, because 90% of the time, what you had originally is the right grade, because that's off of the fall. Don't put too much emphasis in them running around naked now. I mean, it's not football. And, well, we'll get into it later, but these guys have been doing nothing except preparing for this event the last 6 weeks. They've been at these performance camps, and they rehearse everything that they do. So like in the 3-cone and the 20-yard shuttle, which are important timed events, they're getting their footwork down perfectly. So what surprises us is when somebody has a poor workout, especially, and you can go back to, and sometimes it's not indicative of what kind of player he is. Well, let's go back to one that he got killed for his workout. I mean, the media was saying it was the worst workout in the history of the combine. His name is Orlando Brown. He's going to be getting a contract at north of $20 million a year in the next couple weeks. But it hurt him because, I mean, people knew he wasn't going to be a star athlete. You could just look at him and see how big he is. And I've met him and talked to him, and he's really a nice guy. But, he's not going to be a dancing bear. It's not the way he's built. He's huge. But his numbers as compared to everybody else were atrocious. But hey, go back to what he did in the fall, because during the fall, leading up to the combine, people were saying first round, first round, first round. So the tape is what tells you if the guy can play or not.
Indeed. We're going to talk a lot more about the combine in the second half of the show. I wanted to start with free agency because that is always the kind of overlooked process in this. We talked about the draft for months and months. Everybody's super excited about the draft, but the excitement level for the free agency is a little bit more tempered. And I guess that's because we don't know exactly who is going to be a free agent, because there's still time for contracts to be signed, players to remain with the teams that there are now. So, Greg, what I'd like to do is first ask you, what's going on now with pro personnel? Do they have their big board for free agents? Are they discussing this? Is there war room sessions? Excuse the term war room. Head skull, brain skull sessions regarding all the free agents available. Talk to me a little bit about that process.
Okay, well, first I got to tell you that your face is frozen in time on the other side of the screen. So I don't know if that has anything to do with the audio, but
no one's complaining yet. So
okay, it's an ongoing process, and it's been ongoing. You have, I don't know how many members they have in the pro department, or people they have in the pro department for the Bears. When I was there was 3 full-time pro guys. There was the director and 2 assistants, and then Jerry and I would augment their work, especially if it was a guy we were interested in. So, and they would divvy up the work, and they'd start their work in the fall, because they're doing the pro department in the fall is constantly keeping a ready list for waivers, acquisitions, and street free agents when guys get hurt, things of that nature. But they're also doing the advanced scouting for the upcoming opponents. So when you're doing that advanced scouting, you're watching the tape closely. So you're getting a pretty good idea how a lot of guys play. And they have reports written on all the prospective free agents and restricted free agents that are, going to be in that category in another, 2 weeks. So, and we're going to know, I think, a week from Wednesday who the actual free agents are, because that's the last day you can tag somebody. Or a week from tomorrow. The 7th is a week from tomorrow, right? March 7th?
Checking really quickly, it is Tuesday.
Yeah, okay. So by the 7th, by the end of business on the 7th, you're going to know who's a free agent and who isn't. I think you can still sign people. If you got a potential free agent out there and you want to bring him back and you can reach a deal with them, you can still do that, but you're going to know who's been tagged and who hasn't been tagged. There was a report last week that every Chicago Bears fan wants Daron Payne to be a defensive lineman for the Bears, but there's been reports that Washington is going to tag him. It's just going to probably wait till the last minute to see if they can get a deal with him. We'll see if that actually happens. I mean, we saw reports of that back in the fall. Was always hoping that he might be available, but it doesn't look like he's going to be. But the Bears will have their list, okay, for guys who can be the 3 technique. This will be the top guy they want to go after. This will be the next guy, the next guy, the next guy. And technically, you can't be talking to the agents of these guys right now, but it's happening. And you can't make a deal, but you can find out what the range is. What do you think? What's tackle A going to cost me in free agency if we make an offer? And they're going to, and of course, the agent's going to lie a little bit and push up the number. But you can get a pretty good idea of what each player that you have interest in is going to cost you. And then you start planning that around. But it's just like preparing the draft. You're going to have, it's not the exact type of board, but you've got priorities. Hey, this is what we want to, this is what we know is the strength of the draft, and this is the strength of free agency, and we want to get this accomplished in free agency. And hopefully do. I'm going to assume they're going to try to get at least one offensive lineman, probably a right tackle, 2 defensive linemen, and I don't know after that. Fill-in guys that they try to. I think they'll spend money on 3, maybe 4, and then after that, it's going to be like last year. They're going to get guys for 1, maybe 2-year deals at not a lot of money because you still got the draft, and you don't want to give out too much money. I think he wants to keep this team young and really build the base of this team, build a strong foundation. So I'd be shocked, and except for one guy, until it came out that Payne definitely wasn't going to be a free agent, I did not see the Bears going after Hargrave from the Eagles as a potential 3 technique. And now it wouldn't shock me if they did. Now, Hargrave just turned 30. So if you gave him, and I saw one thing that's a projection, they said he'll be the Bears' number 1 guy, and they'll do a 3-year deal for X amount of dollars, like $54 million or something like that. And I don't remember the exact figure, so I'm making it up. And okay, 3-year deal on a 30-year-old guy, that's good. I wouldn't want to give a 5-year deal because chances are year 4 and 5, you're not going to have him, or he's going to start going downhill unless he keeps himself in unbelievable condition. So I think where you're going to, I'm sure Ryan Poles and Flus would love some leadership in the locker room, some stable veteran players, but that doesn't mean they have to be on the north side of 30. They could be 27, 28, 29 and be solid veterans. So it'll be interesting. You're going to start to hear, you won't hear much coming out of the combine because there'll be lies leaked like there always is. But 2 weeks from today, you can start the negotiation period. Legally, you can start it. And we're going to do a show 2 weeks from tomorrow. And it wouldn't surprise me if there's already 1 or 2 players who have agreed to deals by the time we do that show in 2 weeks.
Wow. This is all very fascinating to me. And I got to ask you about certain players. Well, let me ask you this first. I worry that this team is not going to come away from free agency with more than 1 or 2 major players like a Payne or a Hargrave, because the free agency pool appears to me to be one of the worst of recent memory. And that's the way it looks now, 2 weeks before free agency begins. So it could get even worse. What's your gut feel about the potential of this free agency class? And are the Bears, now they have almost $100 million in cap space, but they have so many openings. This roster probably has the fewest signed players for 2023 than any NFL team.
They get like 50 under contract or something.
Okay.
I went through the roster. I mean, it's not as bad as you think.
Okay.
And a lot of them are guys who signed future contracts, practice squad guys and stuff last year. Like I said, I've always thought, looking at it, 100 million is a big figure. By far, they got like 45 million more than the next team. And that's Atlanta. Atlanta's got about 55, 66 million to spend. I don't expect them to spend everything. They got to keep money aside for Justin Fields a year from now. They're going to start. It wouldn't surprise me if they get one or in the next week or two, they get 1 or 2 guys, on extensions done. But that's going to be up to the
Poles and
to Poles and Cliff Stein and Flus. Do they want to, extend that money yet or wait? And then there's going to be players, and my theory is, and I could be totally wrong, guys like Monty, that they're going to say, hey, go see what you can get and come back and see us. And you do it with a handshake deal and it's friendly. And, if he can get an exorbitant amount of money, more power to him. But I just don't see it happening because actually the running back free agent class is pretty good. Okay, there's some positions that are really good. Torian was just had a note on here a couple seconds ago. The wide receiver class is kind of depressing. There's a few guys that look like they could help a team, but that's why Poles went out and made that trade for Claypool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because he saw that, you looked at what the class was going to be, and he said, I'm gonna get my guy now, and I'm not gonna have to compete then. And I think they'll get one other guy in the draft. But what's going to be the key to all this is what's going to happen when they in fact trade down. Now, are we too early in the program to go into that, or do you want to talk about free agency?
Oh, go ahead. I follow your lead on this. I ask a question, and wherever you take me, I'm happy to follow.
It came out today. Schefter tweeted, "Well, it looks like the Bears are going to look to trade the pick." No shit. Come on.
How much is he paid?
No. This whole thing was a made-up story to begin with. Yep. It never came from the Chicago Bears. It was like, oh, they got the first pick. They should look for, your amateur GMs is that they should look to draft one of these quarterbacks. Now, my opinion is there isn't a quarterback in this class that's as good as Justin Fields. So why would you think about going backwards? And then there's these idiots, some of them local, that say, well, you want to keep the rookie on or the quarterback on a rookie deal. So you move that calendar up another 2 years by having a rookie. Yeah, but you're going backwards. Somewhere along the line, you got to develop a guy and let him play. So what are you going to do? Draft a guy now, and then 2 years from now, draft a guy again, and you're going to suck all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, where do people come up with some of these idiotic details?
Oh gosh, you know what? They got to fill the time with something, and sometimes they come up with some bad stuff.
No, but it's guys on Twitter too. And big analytical guys who are real big on analytics, and it's better for the cap if you keep bringing in a rookie quarterback. No, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
I get a guy. Then sooner or later you're gonna have to pay him. And look at the teams that are winning. What do they got? Good fucking quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. We got a lot of good questions piling up. Let us take care of one or two of them. So Joe T says, what is the likelihood of the Bears making a deal on the first pick before the draft? And if so, does Poles announce it or not before draft day? What's your thinking on that?
That can go either way. And I think we went back on one of our previous shows, and I don't have that stuff in front of me right now, the dates when certain trades were made.
Right.
In the year that Philadelphia moved up twice to get to Carson Wentz, and they moved up to the second pick. The Rams had the first pick. The Rams were going to take a quarterback, and Philly was going to take the guy the Rams didn't take, is basically what it got down to. But they made one move up from like 13 to 8 or 14 to 8 or something like that with Miami. And then probably 8-9 days before the draft, they moved up from 8 to 2. And to secure getting that quarterback. It depends on a lot of things. And this might be a lengthy answer, but I'm glad you asked because I put some thought into this.
Right.
You have to, before you can say, I want to move up, you got to fall in love with somebody. And right now, as we stand, and it's February 27th, there is no, as far as I know, and I make a lot of calls, there's no consensus number one quarterback. I think, if you polled all 32 teams, you might get 1/3 say it's Young from Alabama. Another third will say it's Stroud. Another third will say it's Levis from Kentucky. and the combine's not going to settle it. And I wrote about that last week because, well, number one, Young's not throwing at the combine, but throwing at the combine is totally useless for a quarterback. You know, he can't get any rhythm. He makes 2 throws to receivers he doesn't know and he's never practiced with a day in his life. And then he goes to the back of the line and he waits 10, 12 minutes before he throws another 2 throws. I mean, come on. So anybody who wants to make something out of that, they can. But, you know, if I was an agent, I wouldn't even let my guy throw at the combine because of what I just said.
Interesting.
The league wouldn't like me saying that because you got to have somebody to throw to the receivers. It's a good workout, the combine. You get a lot out of the receiver workout. You get nothing out of the combine work or out of the quarterback workout. The interviews are important. If they do the Olympics, you know, if they run and do the shuttles, and a lot of quarterbacks won't even do that. Like I was at Peyton Manning's pro day. He wouldn't run. He didn't want anybody. Oh, no, he didn't. He didn't want anybody to know how slow he was.
And slow he was. I want to thank John Falsetta. Anyone can jump to the top of the list of questions by a little donation, and John has put $2 into the kitty, and thank you very much, John. He wants to know, what are your thoughts? This is late breaking news. I just confirmed
He's not skipping the combine. He's not working out.
He's not working. Okay, let's read what ArizonaSports.com has to say. Georgia defensive lineman Jalen Carter has decided to skip the workout portion.
He's going through the physical, going through interviews. He's not going to work out. Not unusual. We've talked about that. Yeah, we've talked about it before. Some of it's player choice, some of it's agent choice. There's some agents, and I don't have a clue who Jalen Carter's agent is. But they prefer that their clients work out strictly at the pro day. Now, that could be good or bad. The good part is that the combine's very stressful. You're on your feet a lot, you know, especially the 2 days leading up to your workout. And so your legs might be a little bit tired, you know, by the time you actually get to the workout floor and work out. With the big people, and I don't know if they changed the schedule, but last year they were used to lift for years and years and years. And this is going back to the beginning in January 1985. You always lifted 2 days before you ran. So you had some sort of recovery. Last year, it was either the day before or the day of. That's... You know, that took a lot of the big guys out of lifting at all. Said, screw it, I'll lift at school. But because the point, though, I'm trying to make is because of the pressure of the combine and the pressure, and some of these guys will go through 20, 25 interviews and stuff. And so, you know, they got to be on their A game for that, or hopefully be on their A game. Plus, they're going through the medical, they're going through psychological testing. They're mentally worn out, and so they'd rather be relaxed at their own school where they're more comfortable and they can get a good night's sleep the night before, 2 days before, and they're prepared. Now, where it hurts, the bad side of that is if you don't show as good as you want at the combine, you got a makeup exam at your pro day. Okay. Now, if you skip the combine workout and then you wait to your pro day and you blow it on your pro day, you're shit out of luck, son. You know, who has time? Now, your agent's going to panic and he's going to set up another day. Guess how many are going to show up? About 1/10 of what were there because you don't have time. Yeah. Every single day, the month of March. Okay, actually, it's just 3 weeks of the month of March now because the combine's really been pushed back. The workouts don't begin until March 2nd. On Thursday is the first workout day. So, you know, the end of next week is when pro days are going to start, and now they'll go into April. But you got stuff going on every day. So you can't be sending people back to School A because the one guy flunked his test. Hey, guess what, Charlie? You were supposed to do well. You skipped the combine. That was your choice.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
I used to have a biology teacher when I was in 10th grade. You pays your money, you take your chance, man. That's
I like it. I like it. All right. Let me tackle another question or two here. We got some good ones. Let's see. Let me pick out this one. Are they waiting to see what's going on in the free agent market before deciding Monty's fate? You and I have talked about this before. You had a great response yesterday for our draft Barroom exclusives regarding the strategy of looking at David Montgomery and whether he should continue or whether the Bears should pursue him or not pursue him. Share some of that with the audience.
well, I mean, none of us are going to know exactly what they're going to do. And they're not going to broadcast it. Why should they? But they're going to have private discussions with them and discussions with his agent. They could try to make a deal. They could say, hey, we're not going to bring you back. See ya. But if that happened, we'd probably already know that. Or we'll find out in the next couple of weeks. But my gut feeling is he's 25 years old. There's good football left in him, but he's a running back. And I'm just part of this is my own philosophy. I don't believe in paying running backs anymore. You know, most of them, when they get to that second contract, and I'll give you a perfect example. Tariq Cohen, they extended him. He got one frickin' game before he tore his ACL. The very first game, he tears an ACL. Then he's working out to get ready to work out again, and he pops his Achilles. So
sad.
With a running back, there's no such thing as a slow what's the word I want? A slow escalator going down. It's like an express elevator. Boom, you're going down real quick. When the legs start to go, they go. And so, I'd be all for giving Monty a 2-year deal, maybe 3 at the most if the money's not too bad. But he's a good complimentary back. He's great in the locker room. He's a great leader. I think that the combination of him and Hilbert is excellent because they both got different strong points, different weak points. There's things that Hilbert can do that Monty can't do, and there's things Monty can do that Hilbert can't do. And so that really meshes well when running the offense. But I think this is my gut feeling is they're going to say, David, go out and test free agency, see what you can get. Keep your mind open. We still want to talk to you. And then, if he gets an outrageous deal, he's going to take it, and they're going to say, see you later.
Right.
Or he's going to, you know what, I want to be here for 2 years. I've seen what's out there. The best probably I can do is right here. And it's not going to be Cliff Stein saying, told you so. Now I'm dropping it by $1 million a year. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not going to happen. So they're going to tell him what they think he's worth. And, could they go up a $500,000? Yeah, of course they could. But, from a general perspective, they're going to pretty much tell him what they feel his market value is.
Yeah. Greg, your mic is brushing up against the zipper part of your collar. So I wonder if you can maybe open up the zipper a little long. That way the collar flies.
Shut up the zipper a little bit. We'll go like that.
Hey, now you're talking. Look at this guy, solution maker. All right. So I got a theory about the running back position. I shared it with you. You poo-pooed it, but no, but I do believe that the starting running back for the Chicago Bears team is going to be drafted in April by the team. And because I love this class, I think there are potential starters that will be drafted in the 4th and 5th and maybe even 6th round, depending how things tumble down because of team needs and so forth. And so I don't think a veteran free agent is going to be signed until after the draft. That's my new take on my old theory. What do you think about that?
Well, outside of Montgomery, I would agree with you. I would think that if they can get a deal done with Montgomery at a fair price, at their price, because they're not going to go over what their price is, that could be done. Yeah, we did the running backs the other day. I mean, I think it's a hell of a running back class. I don't want to spend day 1 or day 2 on a running back, but I think in day 3 you can still get a hell of a player.
Yeah.
And don't forget he's going to be a compliment. You got Khalil Hilbert at least 2 more years.
Right.
And so it's going to be a guy that's going to rotate with Hilbert. But you want a guy that, like Monty is a good guy to pair with him. They complement each other. You need somebody to complement Hilbert. And that's somebody, number one, who can block, because that's the weakest part of his game. And the second weakest part of his game is as a receiver. And those are the 2 strong parts of Montgomery's game.
I just realized you said Hilbert and not Herbert.
Did I say, Herbert,
yeah.
Sorry.
You must be thinking about the Dilbert comic book guy who had just got himself into
there's a Hilbert College in Buffalo.
Maybe that's it.
All
right, let's switch over. We got more questions. I'm collecting them, guys, but I want to introduce this topic here. I about 20 minutes ago, I said I'm concerned about the quality of this free agency class. Earlier this morning, The Athletic released their top 100 free agents, and I selected the top offensive linemen and the top defensive linemen on their list, and I'd like you to take a look at it and maybe comment on a few players that you'd love to see the Bears target and maybe stay away. So on the defensive line, on the left column there, Payne and Hargrave are, of course, 1-2, and you've already expressed your opinions on that. Anything you want to add about the potential of pursuing those guys if indeed they become free agents?
I wouldn't touch Davenport personally. I mean, what do you have? I think we talked about him once before.
Half a sack.
1.5 sack.
Yes,
for 1.5 sack, he's going to have to pay me to be on the team. It's like, yeah, you want to play? Yeah, you pay us. We'll let you play. That's a fair deal. Draymond Jones, I think, because he's younger, he's Javon Hargrave is just turned 30 years old, and Draymond Jones is 25 or 26. So age-wise, he's pretty good. Zach Allen, was a war daddy coming out of Boston College. He's a good player. He's not a 3. He's a 1. Now, you could play him at 3, get by with him in the rotation. But what's he going to cost? You don't want to pay a lot of money for that if you're going to, he's mainly a 1 and you want to get by with him. You look at the numbers and, I'll go to and I think I gave these out when we were doing the 3 techniques, but the size and the speed of 3 of the best 3 techniques to ever play the game. And one was Tommy Harris, and Tommy Harris was 6'2.5". Weighed 290 at the combine, but played in the upper 280s for the Bears, and he ran a 4.68 at the combine. That same year in the second round, we took Tank Johnson. Tank Johnson was the same height, 10 pounds heavier, and ran a 4.72. I don't know if there's going to be anybody who runs as fast as those 2 guys.
Yeah.
Then you go back and, you got the 2 guys who played at Tampa Bay, Booger McFarland, and they were each less than 6'1". One was 291. The other one was 285, 288, and they could run. All of them could run. And that's what the profile is for this position, where you look at a guy like Zach Allen. Zach Allen is when he was coming out, was a 505 or a 5'1", 40 guy. So that's not the type of guy you necessarily want at that 3 technique position. He doesn't have that explosive quickness. He's a tough guy. They list him on the Cardinals because a guy from the media asked me to do him for them the other day, and I did. They list him at 280 or 285. He's bigger than that. This guy's a big dude. He's probably close to 300. Dalvin Tomlinson, I don't think is a fit. Maybe you could play the 1, but you still want you want quicker, faster, more explosive guys. He's not the perfect guy to play this. Anye Mata, I think, is a pretty good fit. I haven't studied him as much as I need to. Good player, but he's also like 30 or 31 years old.
Yeah, he's up there.
Okay. And Ngakoue started off the guy. There's got to be something wrong here, and I might be throwing a dart at the wall, but this guy's played on like 4 teams already, or 3 teams, and he started out with Jacksonville. He's with the Raiders, with the Colts. He's a free agent again. He started off the year slowly for the Colts, but I think he finished with 8.5, 9 sacks.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think he didn't play for Flus. Last year was his year in Indy. So he's an interesting guy. Jump on to Fletcher Cox. They're not going to have any interest in Fletcher Cox. He's like, getting ready to collect Social Security.
It is 5
and
teams.
Ashawn Robinson, I don't see as a fit. If they got him listed as around 330, and those aren't the type of guys you want. They're like 2-gap guys, and they don't have that explosive quickness to play. Now, could he do it? Yeah, you'd probably want him a little bit smaller than he is, cut some weight down. But I just can't see it happening right now.
Okay, before you get on to the offensive lineman, I want to ask you a question regarding this list. Let me get that graphic off first. Okay. The Bears were terrible at run defense last year, and
Yes,
they got rid of Kyrie's Tonga, who went on to play, I think it was with Minnesota, and really helped their run defense game. So we clearly got rid of Tonga because he wasn't the scheme fit. But are there issues with the scheme fit when you can't allow for a run stopping?
No, there's room for it, but Tonga was like 230 on a 330 on a 6'1" body and arms shorter than mine. So hey, the guy plays tough. He was a better fit in the defense they were playing. Okay, and what Minnesota is doing, they got a new defensive coordinator this year. I don't know what they're going to do this year, but they did give a new contract to Tonga. But they had Donatel as their coordinator, and so they were doing Donatel's Fangio's right-hand man for years and years and years. They're doing a lot of stuff very similar to what Fangio does, which is different than what Chicago does.
Yep.
And don't forget, Tonga originally got picked up by Atlanta, where Ryan Pace is. And Atlanta, I don't know if Atlanta got rid of him or Minnesota poached him off the practice squad. That part I don't remember. But, he ended up being with 3 teams last year. But I know your point. It's well taken. But this scheme is a great scheme, but you got to get the proper guys to play the position. Like I said, there's a profile for there's 4 positions along the defensive line, and there's a profile for every one of those positions. And if you look at when I was there, we had a great defense and a fabulous defensive line. Okay, and look at the guys that we had playing along the line. Tommy Harris, Tank Johnson. We had was a little nose guard. Come on, Spice Adams. And Spice Adams was 5'11" and a half. And about 305. He had long arms.
Yep.
But real quick and explosive. And he was the one technique. And you really can have guys like that. And nobody ran on us. So it's not the size, it's the talent. Are you strong? Can you get off blocks? Do you run to the ball? And you look at some of the defensive tackles that were on this team last year. There's one guy that was a real fit, and that was Jones, and that's it.
Yeah. Okay, that's fascinating stuff. And so let me move on to the offensive line part of this list. And so, can we begin first? And you've provided this for us on our Barroom Draft Exclusives, but can you share in a perhaps a little shorter version? What is the profile for an offensive lineman on this team? So, if you can, in very general terms, and then we'll look at that list with that in mind.
Well, okay, people are gonna throw things at the screen right now. Orlando Brown is a great tackle. He cannot play in this scheme. Okay, what the tackles have to be athletic, and you look at the teams playing this and how good they've been, and look at their linemen across the board. They're pretty damn athletic. Green Bay, Rams, San Francisco, now, can you be 320 and be athletic? Absolutely. That's the best of both worlds. You get a guy who's big and very, very athletic. Tevin Jenkins is 320 pounds, an athletic guy. And you look at his numbers. And they didn't have a combine that year, but you look at his numbers on the pro day, and his numbers match up with some of the best linemen in the league. So, and then you go back and you look at the 4 offensive linemen that Poles took last year on day 3, and all of them have one common denominator: they're athletic as hell. And so, Braxton Jones, perfect example. Braxton Jones was 312, 313 at the combine. He's a little over 6'5". He's got 35-inch arms. I mean, you don't teach those things. Those are natural traits. Could run. He ran like a 4.98 at that size. That's incredible. The guy's really an impressive athlete. Okay, he came from a very poor, low FCS level competition. He had a strong upper body, did 26, 27 reps at the combine last year, but his lower body isn't where it needs to be in the NFL. This one-off season will take care of that. And part of that has to do with where he came from. What was he? He was obviously doing bench presses, but did he have the guidance? And usually, you come with these smaller. I comes from these smaller programs. They don't have the guidance. They don't have the wherewithal or the know-it-all from the people teaching them to be necessarily doing the right things. And so now you got the best of the best running the weight rooms in the NFL, and they're going to work on his weaknesses. And I'll tell you, there's very little of the conversation I had with Ryan Poles that I'll put out in public, but I'll put out this. And because we talked about Jimmy Arthur, and Jimmy Arthur's the head strength coach for the Bears, and Jimmy was there when I was there. He was Rusty Jones' right-hand man. And for my money, Rusty Jones is the best in the business. And Rusty was way ahead of the curve when he was working for the Bills and then for us. And Jimmy has that same philosophy. And Ryan said to me flat out, he just loved Jimmy Arthur. And he said, if we had a guy like him in Kansas City, nobody would have touched us. And because of, Jimmy is a huge believer in percentage of body fat, lean weight, etc. And so each position has an assigned body fat. Okay. Right. And I forgot what I could call Rusty and get what the numbers are. And I probably should do that for a later show. But, let's say I'll just pick numbers out. Let's say offensive lineman, the max is say 22% body fat. Okay. And then defensive lineman, you want them a little bit leaner than that. And then you get those guys got to be in single digits. We're talking 6, 7, 8% body fat. They're lean guys, linebackers and running backs, low teens. And again, I'm doing this off of memory, so I might be a little bit
Sure.
off.
Okay.
But it's very, very seldom, and there's one exception that I can remember playing with us, and that was Nate Vasher, that of a skill position guy, meaning wide receiver, defensive back, not a tight end, but a wide receiver, defensive back that had more body fat than 10%. And Nate was the only guy. And that was just his body composition. No matter how hard he worked at it, he wasn't getting below 10. He was up around 13. And I remember Rusty, like batting his head against the wall. He can't play at 13%. But he was the exception to the rule. He got to the Pro Bowl.
That is good stuff. There's always exceptions. Okay, so with that in mind, let's take a look at the right column here. The offensive line, top 10 offensive linemen, according to The Athletic in a recently released article. I think it was this morning they published that at the very top, you got Kalen McGarry, the right tackle out of Atlanta. And then McGlinchey at number 2.
I would say it's a 90 to a 99% chance that he's going to end up staying in Atlanta. They got the second most amount of money. They're like 55 or 66 million. He's a key player for them. So I would say he's going to re-sign with them. Is that a lock? No. Would he be of interest to the Bears if he becomes available? I would think so. He's an athletic guy. He's a right tackle, and that's the area they're trying to fix. McGlinchey, unless he re-signs with San Francisco, and I don't think they're going to do it right now, only because they don't have the money to do it. They're over the cap, I think.
Yes.
McGlinchey has played in this scheme his whole career, so he's a fit. And he's also like 26, 27 years old, 20, maybe 28 at the most. But I think he's already played 5 years in the league. He's been a starter since his rookie year. Is he perfect? No. But he is a huge upgrade over what they got, which is Barroom Draft at right tackle from last year. Obviously it's going to be what's he going to cost. Ciamalo, I don't really know much about his game, so I can't comment.
Okay.
Taylor Lewan, I don't think is going to play anymore. I mean, they cut him. They cut him last week, and he said he's been contemplating retirement, and he's been contemplating that going back like a month. So I think it remains to be seen. All indications I have is that he's missed a lot of time the last couple of years, and the Bears don't want to go after a guy like that.
Absolutely not.
No, they want guys with durability, and he's getting older. So I would say no on him. Isaiah Wynn, he's always been a guard that's playing tackle. He's 6'2.5". So I'd say no.
Okay.
Ethan Posick, I don't know his game that well. I did him coming out of college, and I thought he was kind of stiff. But he's an athletic stiff guy, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And he's pretty smart. So that'd be a possibility. I think the key is, and we're going to find this out in the next 2 weeks, is do they hold on to Patrick? And they could. I know a lot of fans are down on Patrick, but Patrick played exactly 1 quarter at center, and that's the position he was signed to play. Okay, right. Because he got dinged up in OTAs, got hurt again when camp started, and he had been a guy that had been extremely durable, and it wasn't like really huge injuries, but they were time-consuming injuries. In the meantime, they had, that started the role of, probably having during the course of the season about 12 different combinations for the offensive line as far as who was starting where. I think they signed him for a reason, and they're going to give it one more shot. Could I be wrong? Absolutely, I could be wrong.
Sure.
But I see Patrick being the center, at least going into this year. They drafted the kid last year. Mustafer played better in the second half. I think Mustafer is a backup. And so do you want to upgrade that backup position, either Mustafer, the kid they drafted last year, Kramer? Yeah, you may want to do that. I don't think you do it with a veteran. I think you do that with a rookie in the draft. Nate Davis, I don't know. Dalton, Reeser, these other guys. Ben Powers, is an interesting guy, but I don't see him or Will Hernandez as a fit. Both of those guys are real big guys, and I don't see them having the athleticism that Getsy wants for those guys to be able to pull, get out in space, adjust on the move, and make a good block on the move. Those are more power guys. Both Powers and Hernandez would have been really good fits with Juan Castillo's line.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I got to study Dalton Reiser because he was down at the Senior Bowl 4 years ago, and I was really impressed with his play. He's got that mean temperament that you want out of offensive linemen, and in the game itself, he was knocking people to the ground. So he's got that. Whether he's a scheme fit, that's for other people.
Well, you got to make a decision too on what you're going to do with Cody Whitehair. And that's another thing. Now, is it going to be in the next couple of weeks? It could. But when you look at his contract, that they aren't going to keep him, he's going to be a post-June 1st cut. So you can spread that cap hit over 2 years instead of just this year. They can make that decision now. They can't make that decision until the league year starts on the 15th. But after the 15th, you can designate him as a post-June 1 cut, and that gives him the freedom. You don't get your cap savings until June 1st, but he gets to sign with anybody he wants. And even if he signs, you still don't get that cap savings until June 1st. So, that's let's see what happens. And if you replace it, or if you cut him, you got to have a replacement. Now, one of the replacements may be right here, and they drafted him last year, and that's Tyree Carter. And he got some play time in the last couple of games. Played from a historically black school, Southern University in Baton Rouge. Guy's a hell of a player, but raw as hell. So he needs play time. And he's got the traits. He's very athletic, very explosive. I think we've talked about him. This guy was a freaking point guard in high school with mid-major offers to play point guard, and he was like 270 when he was a high school point guard. So that tells you about his athleticism. He's got the athleticism you want. What he doesn't have is the know-how. And again, that's where he came from. And I'm not knocking the school. He just didn't play. He's not going to get the coaching there that he's going to get in the SEC. So, and he wasn't a star, coming out of high school. He's a late bloomer. And like I said, he was getting basketball offers in high school, not a lot of football offers. So, but a really freakish athlete for a guy his size. Another guy who's a sub-5 flat guy at about 310 pounds and really, really strong. And where Braxton Jones, had trouble anchoring last year, this guy can anchor. This guy's a seat smasher. He's got a big butt and can bend his knees, and nobody's going to push him back. It's just getting him the experience of getting him on the field. Is that going to be 2023 or is it going to be 2024?
Good stuff, Greg. Really good stuff. Okay, moving on to the next question. I love this question from Berlissimo. He asks you, is there almost a value to not splurging over odds-on average receivers to see who is a cap casualty, given that we are number one on the waiver priority to start?
I think we're number one through like the second or third week of the season.
Yeah.
So it's all during preseason. If the guy, now there's one fault to that, Barlissimo, is that most of the guys who are cap casualties are veteran players. And when you're a veteran, and that means you've got 4 vested years in the league, you don't go through waivers. So it doesn't matter where you pick in the waivers. You are a free agent at 4 p.m. Eastern the day you get cut.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, and that goes up until the trade deadline. And then, so that's roughly just past midseason. And so from then the rest of the season, so say 3/8 of the season, then they got to go through waivers. But the guys who are going to get cut now, like let's say A-Rob got cut because he didn't live up to the contract. The Bears wouldn't have first priority on A-Rob. A-Rob's a free agent. He can go wherever the hell he wants.
Interesting. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Next question. CJ Williams, when you were talking about the pro days and combine, he asked this question: are pro days ruining the combine? I would say not, but you would know better.
I mean, they've always been a staple. I'm going to give you some history here because it's kind of interesting how these things have evolved. When I started off in the league in the early 80s, there weren't pro days. Okay, you had scouts going out, and kids would work out sometimes 3 times a day and 4 days a week because they'd work out for one team at 8 o'clock in the morning, another team at 1 o'clock, and another team at 4 o'clock in the same day, and they'd run 340s, and there was like, and it was our fault. I mean, because what you do, you'd call the kid or you call the agent and say, hey, I'm passing through. I want to see this guy. I want to work him out, time him, yada, yada. And the kids, of course, they wanted a job. Well, then it got to be a little crazy, and the schools could see this. And the schools started having pro days. And so if you want to work out our player, this is the day you're going to work them out. And it used to be each school had 2 or 3 pro days. So some kids, and that got screwed up because then you'd send a bunch of people. Let's say it's Ohio State's first pro day, and they were going to have 2, one the second week of March and one the first week of April or something. So some of the good kids would go, oh, I'll run at the I'll do position specific drills today, but I'm not going to do the measurable events until the next pro day. Well, now you got to keep sending people back. And so it got to the point where there's 1 frickin' day per school. And that's probably the best way. Now you can go in and set up a private workout, but you can't do it until after his pro day. So it's, and I think at some positions, quarterback especially, pro days for a quarterback, I think are the most useless thing in the world. They're great for the media. The media is going to slobber all over a guy. Oh my God, he hit 48 of 53 passes. Yeah, and he was thrown on there, and he'd been practicing that pro day for the last 8 days. He's supposed to complete 48 out of 51 passes. It's a scripted event, and it's the script is written up so that it only shows his strengths. Yeah. They're not going to advertise any of the weaknesses he has. And a pro coach has no say in what goes on during that pro day event. It's all done by the quarterback coach, quarterback guru, not the school, the guy that's been hired by the agent to coach this kid to get ready for his pro day and for the combine, etc. So now you fast forward, you go to let's say you go to CJ Stroud's workout, and he's great. So the media is bumping him. He should be the number 1 pick, yada, yada, yada. But now you go into, the following week or 10 days later, and you do a private workout. Well, now CJ Stroud doesn't have a freaking clue what you're going to be doing that day. And you're going to start off you're going to start off that day, and you're going to get them down in one of the meeting rooms, and you're going to interview the hell out of them. And then you're going to say, okay, CJ, draw up on the board, give me your 4 best plays that your offense had, and take me, dissect those plays, take me through those plays.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're going to get his understanding of his offense. Then you're going to get done with that. And let me tell you something. There's some kids that don't have a freaking clue what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple quarterbacks that were supposed to be good that went out, and when they got on the board, they were horrendous. And it's because of the simplicity of the offense that they're playing in.
Interesting.
So now when you get done with that part, now you're saying, okay, that part's good. Now we're gonna learn 3 of our own plays from our playbook. You know, this is some of the staples that you have in the playbook. And you're gonna take him through the play. This is what you got to do when you come up to the line of scrimmage. This is what X is doing. This is what Z is doing. This is what Y is doing. This is what the F is doing. Yada, yada, yada. These are what is free. Now, if the defense is press man, these guys are going to run X and X, a certain route. If they drop back into zone, it's going to be a different route. They got to make the read instantaneously. You got to make the read instantaneously. So the kid's taking all these notes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now you get done with that. CJ, now it's your turn. Tell me everything I just told you. And so you're finding out how attentive he is, how quickly he can pick things up, his learn and retain ability, and process it. Then you're going to get done with that. Now you're spending probably 3 hours down in a classroom between interviewing and doing all this board work. Now you're going to go out on the field and you're going to try. First of all, he hasn't been practicing what he's going to do because he has no idea what he's doing. So it's all new. And a lot of times you're going to have him do things that you just taught him in the classroom. He's going to have his receivers, but it's going to be a different type of workout where we control everything in the workout and he controls nothing. So you come away from that feeling a lot different than you would a pro day. And I'll give you a perfect example. It might be a winded answer that I'm giving you on this, but
it's okay. It's fascinating.
Go back 2 years ago, or not 2 years. Yeah, 2 years ago. So without question, Trevor Lawrence was going to be the number one guy. After that, it was, who the hell knows? For a long time, it was Justin Fields. And then out of nowhere comes Trey Lance and the kid from BYU.
Zach Wilson.
Yeah. And had there been, in 2021, you could not do a private workout with a guy. You could do a Zoom call, but you couldn't go in because of the pandemic. And look, and where are mistakes made at quarterback position? Right now, it looks like at 2 and 3.
Good point.
Okay, so and remember, go back to this. Partially, you can go back to the one question the guy had when trades are made. In the end of March, San Francisco moved up to be in the 3rd spot, so they know they'd get at least the 3rd quarterback, off the board. And they made that trade in the end of March. Before the last couple of years, no trades were made until the latest the day before, or the earliest the day before the draft, to mostly draft day. But now it's been happening a little earlier. And if you can get the right deal and you just, you're trying to make your strategy, then hey, go ahead and make the deal. But who knows what's true? But supposedly, when San Francisco made that trade, the guy they were eyeballing is Mac Jones. And then they fell in love with Trey Lance after the pro day, but they still didn't have, they did it. I remember, I know I've said this before, but we had Daniel Jeremiah, or I talked to Daniel. We've had him on our show, but I talked to Daniel about this, and I go, I don't get it. Why is this guy, thought of as going to be a star?
Yeah.
And he said it's because of what they think he can be. And I just said that goes against everything I've learned in the evaluation of quarterbacks. which was the old-fashioned way. It was number of starts, number of attempts, etc.
A lot of tape. Yeah.
Yeah, and the more you play, the better chance you got of being an experienced guy. And this is a guy that started 1 year, and then his final year, one game in the fall, and that was it. And so what the hell do you have to go on? And now he gets hurt. He's a backup his rookie year. He plays a couple games this year and then gets hurt out for the rest of the season. Now they're going into year 3. They still don't know what the hell they have.
It's fascinating stuff, Greg. I'm going to move on to the next question. Another really good one from Adeptus. He read that DeForest Buckner started as an edge. What's the viability of drafting one of these huge edges and then moving him inside to the 3-tech? And I do remember Buckner playing at edge for the 49ers. And then wasn't it the Colts that moved him inside?
Yeah, they traded for him to be a 3-tech.
Wow. So what do you think about this whole idea?
That happens all the time. The guy we talked about, how the hell do you pronounce his name? The kid from Northwestern?
Adabamo, or I'm sorry.
Yeah, whatever.
Double A.
That was an edge player at Northwestern because he was their best pass rusher.
Yes.
Okay, he is going to be in the the 3-4 teams might not have a big liking to him because of his size. At the Senior Bowl, he's 6'1.5", 285 pounds, but he had 34 and a quarter inch arms, real long arms. He is a 3 technique. He is an ideal 3 technique. Look at Warren Sapp and Booger McFarland and Tommy Harris. None of them were huge guys. All of them were fast and explosive, and that's what this guy I think is going to run 4.7 and really jump well. I'm excited to see what his workout's going to be. But yeah, there's at another end. The answer is my USC guy.
Tuipulotu. Yeah, awesome guy.
Tuli Tuipulotu. He was a outside guy, 6'4", 290. Had 13 and a half sacks this past year. Has played some inside, but mostly a 5 technique guy. So he's listed as a defensive end, but he'll be another guy that's a 3 technique when he gets into the league. Depending on the team, he'll be a 5 technique for a 3-4 club. But for a team like the Bears, he's a 3 tech, and I think going to be a real damn good one. So it's I'll tell you a guy who I think could end up growing into a 3, and people won't like hearing this because I don't like him as a defensive end, is Murphy from Clemson. And he gets a lot of accolades. A lot of people got him as a top 10 guy. Yep. But he doesn't get sacks.
That's kind of a problem for defensive line. For an edge.
What's the number one thing a left tackle has to be able to do? Pass block. Okay, yeah. Well, what's the number one thing you want an edge player to do? Rush the frickin' pass.
Pass rush.
Okay, well, he's an average. You had a kid go, and I keep forgetting that the kid who went number 1 last year.
Yeah,
he was a freak athlete.
Trayvon.
Yeah, he was. Trayvon Walker ran a 4.51. He had long arms. He could change direction like a ballerina, and he never got any sacks. He didn't get him at Georgia, and he had 3.5 sacks this year. So it's like, okay, I wasted my pick. And that was the first pick in the draft. If you're going to draft a guy to sack quarterbacks, you better have some experience drafting quarterbacks. And Anderson's got 30-something sacks in his 3-year college career at Alabama. He's averaging better than 10 a year. He's got 27, I think, in the last 2 years, 26 and a half, 27. He sacks the quarterback. That's what his job is. Yeah. So I think Murphy could end up being you could grow him into a 3. He might be a damn good one.
Adeptus asked a good question. Do you think that these guys like Walker and Murphy, is it because they're lacking instincts? I mean, they've got the physical tools to be double-digit sack masters, but do you think in some cases it could be because they lack instincts?
Some of it could be coaching. I mean, but Clemson comes up with some pretty damn good defensive linemen over the years. And so I almost want to throw it. So it's got to be, that's the case of Miles, it's got to be the instincts, the hand use, etc., knowing exactly what you got to do in a certain situation, how you win the leverage game. But I can come up with, God, a half a dozen guys I'd rather have than him. Now, if I already got my sacker and we're in the middle of the first round and I want a left end, okay, I might do that because the guy's a good player. But I think in the Bears scheme, he fits the profile of a left end who you want. Most teams are right-handed, so they run to that side, and you want a little sturdier guy. He's going to be about 275, and he plays the run well. He just doesn't do what an edge guy should do, and that's get a lot of sacks.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go back to questions. Godson. What do you think about Clancy? Kalijah Clancy? We've done a draft report for him on Barroom Draft Exclusives.
I can't wait until they get, and they don't put these guys, parade them on the stage anymore. It's all done in private.
Right.
I can't wait until his measurables come out, his height, weight, and his arm length. His tape is really, really impressive. And the best way to describe him is he's a poor man's Aaron Donald from the same school. It's like Aaron Donald Jr. all over again. Is he as good as Aaron Donald was? No. But I'll tell you what, he's not that far away. And if he is 6 foot and he's got good arm length, can you look up Aaron Donald? I think he was 6'1", 280 something, and he had like 32.5-inch arms. Maybe 32 3/4. You can put Aaron Donald combine results, and
32 and 5/8 was the arm measurement. Hand size 9/7/8.
Big hands. How tall was he?
6'1" even.
6'1" even and 280 something, right?
Correct. 285.
Okay, and if this guy comes in at over 6 feet and he has decent arm length, I don't think he goes in the first round, but I think he might go in the second. But again, it's going to be teams that are playing the Bears type defense that are going to gravitate towards him, and not somebody or John Randall clone. Well, John Randall was the very first 3 technique. So, and again, another smaller, fast, explosive guy.
Excellent. We've got 1 or 2 more questions here to go. Jimmy Tony wanted to know your thoughts on the center free agent Garrett Bradbury.
I can't answer it because I haven't studied him. If it was a name that I thought the guy's a pretty good player. I did him coming out, and I had him as a first-round pick coming out, and I think he went in the first round to Minnesota. Good football player. Was a good player in college. How good he's been since he's been in the pros, I couldn't tell you. He's probably going to cost some money. And again, I'm going to go back. If they still feel the same way about Patrick as they did, and you throw in the circumstances of he got hurt and only played, they signed him to be the center and he played 1/4 of a game at center. I think they go back to that. But we're going to know because we're going to see what's going to happen to him. They could cut him loose, and it's going to cost him a little over $1 million in cap space on the amortized portion of the signing bonus, and that's it. So they very well could, and we'll know the answer to that within the next couple of weeks. And if that's the case, that they're moving on from him, then it's a decent class, and they could draft a guy, or they could go after a guy like Bradbury. But I think, from everything I've been told, people that are supposedly in the know, the first thing they're looking for on the offensive line is a right tackle, and they're going to try to fill that need in free agency. But wanting to do it and hoping to do it doesn't mean you will do it. You got to make a deal.
Yeah. That's the tricky part of this free agency period. It's not like there are tons of right tackles who can play in this scheme.
Well, there's no left tackles. You look at there's no left tackle except for Orlando Brown, and he's going to probably get tagged again and re-signed with Kansas City. There's no way that Kansas City's going to let him go.
Yeah, interesting. All right, let's tackle a couple. Muck posted a thought that I wanted you to react to. He says if he was a top prospect, he would never attend the combine. Now, if you are a top prospects agent and you have a lot of experience with agents, Greg, would you, if the player told you that, what would be your reply to him? And again, remember, you are the player's agent.
You want my real answer?
Unfiltered.
Or you want my family television answer?
Unfiltered, please.
Are you fucking out of your mind? You don't. He doesn't have to work out. That's fine.
Right.
The reason he's going to the combine is to get the medical done, and all 32 teams get the medical. He skips the medical portion of the combine. That poor sucker's going to be going through about 25 different physicals.
That's
and why would he put himself through that agony?
Exactly. That's good. That's good. That's a great answer. You'd be a great agent. We just got this one here. John T says, "Hi, Greg. What do you think? Who do you think is the best offensive lineman in this draft, and who is also a sleeper? Somebody that people are overlooking a bit in this draft."
I don't know about the sleeper. It's for the money. Skoronski's pretty damn good, but he's not going to be a tackle unless all of a sudden he spends today, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday on the rack. And they stretch it because now we don't have verifieds, and he's an underclassman, so he couldn't go to an all-star game. But from people who've made, and I've seen him in person, but people who've made school calls this year, they all say the same thing. The longest his arms will be about 32 and a quarter, and he might not be 6'4". So let's say he's 6'3 3/4, and he's got 32 and a quarter, 32 and a half inch arms. He's a guard. Okay. And he's not tall enough, nor is he long enough to play outside on the edge. And you could look at Zach Martin, Notre Dame, who was a left tackle at Notre Dame, and then he goes to the combine. He has 32 and a half inch arms. Dallas takes him in the first round, and he's going to probably end up in the Hall of Fame as a guard. Okay, that's Skoronski. They're pretty close to the same player. The guy's going to be a hell of a player, but I don't think it's going to be a tackle unless he surprises everybody. And the linemen are going last, so we're not going to know how big he is probably until Friday. We'll probably get it on Friday because they're working out on Sunday. Thursday or Friday, they'll do the weigh and measure on him, and it'll be leaked out exactly what he is. But I just can't see it happening at tackle. The next guy I like at tackle would be Paris Johnson. And what I like about him is that now this year he played left tackle, and he played pretty good at left tackle, but the year before that he played right tackle. So you know what he can do. But okay, how do the Bears get him? Well, you'd have to be trading down into like the 10, 12, 13 spot area around in there, and then that's going to be where he's going to go, and then you're bypassing a defensive player, and it also means you struck out in free agency.
Yep. That's Skoronski is a fascinating player, and another fascinating player is Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech. John and Mr. Shorty both asked the same question. What do you think about Tyree Wilson potentially being a 3-tech? Not going to happen.
He's an end. No, he's an end. He's a long, tall guy. He's not going to work out either, by the way. And that came out earlier today. He broke his foot. At the end of the
that's right.
season, he missed the last 2 or 3 games.
Mhm.
He is now working out, but he's not close to being 100%. So he's going to be a guy that is going to probably not work out. He said he's waiting for the pro day, but if he's not ready for the pro day, he'll push it back into April. And, because and you can't blame him because of, the injury happened in November, and you've got to, get the bone healed, and you got to get the strength back. And then you got to, that ankle or foot, whatever bone he broke, he's got to be able to go through that pounding of doing the change of direction and running and all that other stuff. And so I think the later he can do it is the best. Daniel Jeremiah did a mock the other day, and he had Tyree going in front of Anderson as the first guy off the draft. He's interesting as hell, and one of the most frustrating guys to watch because the way Texas Tech uses him. He's really like a 3-4 outside linebacker, and it's only about 60% of the time when they get into third and long is he actually rushing the passer. A lot of times he's dropping back in the coverage, and you're looking at the tape and you just want to break it, because you say, what are you doing?
Yes.
Yes. And I know what they're doing. They're saying, we're trying to win the games the way we want to win, and we don't give a shit about you. So, but still, he's the best pass rusher they had. And he has the traits to be a freaky pass rusher. And even, he had, I think, 7 or 7.5 each of the last 2 years. And that's when you figured he's only pass rushing half the time. So think of what he'd have if he was, like Anderson and being a full-time pass rusher. Yeah.
Boy, oh boy. So let me ask you about these. That's probably one of the storylines we Bears fans have to follow the closest among others, of course, is what are the medicals going to be for this particular player, Tyree Wilson? Because, in Danny Shimon's draft report on him, he said the most important thing I want to see is what are the doctors at the combine going to say about that bone that he broke?
Oh yeah, as soon as he gets there, doing the defensive lineman first. So I think his medical's tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay.
Because the Bears doctors are my doctors.
Okay.
And my doctor's going down there today. So
okay. You'll be doing tests tomorrow.
Yeah. So I think the medicals start tomorrow, and which is 2 days before, because the linemen are working out on Thursday. So, right. But he probably gets in town today. Could be there right now. I mean, if you're coming from Lubbock, Texas, you might have had a lot yesterday, because that's in the middle of freaking nowhere. Yeah. That's the place I told you about. I went through a dust storm in West Texas. That's where I'm going to Lubbock.
Good old Lubbock.
It's out in the middle of nowhere. And he's probably got to go from Lubbock to Dallas to Indianapolis or Lubbock to Denver if they got a flight from Lubbock to Denver to Indianapolis. But he's a heck of a player, and they'll do an MRI the minute he gets there. They'll have that. They'll do an X-ray. They'll examine it. They'll see how the surgery looks, how the healing process has been, and they might even send it. I don't know exactly what the bone break was. Was it a Liz Frank? Was it a fifth metatarsal? Was it just something else? Yeah. Who knows what the hell it was? And they could send the MRI and the X-rays to a foot specialist. And and each team's going to have their own. And I know the guy. I'm not going to say his name, but I know who the guy is that Chicago tended to. He's the guy who did my Achilles tendon, and he's very good. So that they're going to have experts look at stuff like that, and then that guy's going to say, There could be some issues with him. And well, here's what happens with some of that, because it's interesting. Because you can get a guy that looks like, okay, it's good, but there's like in his, let's say it's a knee, and there's some minor arthritic changes in his knee now, and he's 22 years old. Well, those minor arthritic changes in his knee now are only going to get worse. And so if they're moderate now, then that's what starts putting up the red flags. We might only get 3 years out of this guy or 4 years. And the doctors will tell you that. And that's what makes the medical very valuable. And that's why sometimes you can see a guy that you assume is going to be a high guy go a little lower. Guys drop for two reasons: their medical and their character, not their talent.
Yeah. Which is why, again, you know what, Greg, I was thinking about this recently. The NFL wants to look at another revenue generating idea. How about if they videotaped all of these meetings at the combine between team and player and at least put together a 2-3 minute highlight package of those conversations? I, as a fan, would include that, you know, in a purchase of a la carte items that the NFL is pushing out, because I'd love to see this interview with the Bears.
It's a great idea, I think, but I don't think you'd ever see it because a lot of it's too private.
Yeah. Well, that's the stuff that you cut out. You know, at least let's see him up at the board, you know, rolling out some plays and stuff. John Falsetta wants to know your thoughts.
Well, you know who used to do that, in fairness?
Huh?
When before Gruden got back into coaching and he was doing the ESPN stuff.
Oh, it was great stuff.
Gruden did that. That was really good stuff. It was very elementary compared to what
really happens,
but it was good stuff.
Yeah.
And
Mariucci
you need to have, but Mariucci doesn't take it deep enough. Gruden took it a little bit deeper. But yeah, you're right. Mariucci does it, but I that's what you need. And ESPN could do it with Orlovsky. Orlovsky's a pretty smart guy. I don't agree with him all the time, but he's a pretty smart guy. And, you know, they could pick that up again with him, and they probably should, because it shows a lot.
Yeah, exactly. John Facetta, your thoughts on DeJuan Jones, thoughts that you've already shared?
From Ohio State?
The too big tackle, TOO, too big, right?
Yeah, he going to make a lot of money, but it ain't going to be with the Chicago Bears.
That's right.
Okay, and again, he cannot play in this scheme. And if you watch him carefully, tell me the first time you see him bend his knees. He's a straight-legged player. I call him a phone booth player too. But to do what let me back up a little bit. 2 years ago, when Juan Castillo was coaching the offensive line, he's a fit. They're going to probably drool over the guy, but not in this scheme. Being asked to do what he's going to be asked to do. You give him credit. He's just not. I doubt he's even going to be on the board. You give him credit for what he is. The guy's going to be a good player, but he's going to have to play in the right scheme.
Hair Bear says there was a game where Jalen Carter threw DeJuan across the field and he was lost for like 7 seconds. And that's the thing. I mean, a lot of people are reacting to those highlights that came out of the Senior Bowl, and DeJuan had an excellent one-on-one practice schedule.
Yeah, and then he got hurt, though, after the first day. Got a concussion.
So he claims was the scuttlebutt down in Mobile. People were
always
saying
the scuttlebutt down in Mobile. I mean, okay, I had one good day. Goodbye.
Yeah, well, if I'm an agent, I might suggest the same thing. Stick around the weekend, have some fun, go have some beers after practices. Don't worry about stuff. I got it covered.
Go get some gumbo. There's a good gumbo there.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love the food down there. Greg, this has been a super fun 90 minutes. And again, I want to make sure that people know that on our patreon.com/barroom draft, we're posting new material every day. Greg and I just finished taping another dozen plus players that we'll be posting over the next several days. excellent scouting reports, and Danny's are pretty damn good too. He and I recorded 6 players last night, and it's really fun stuff. And so I hope that people will visit. It's a very low cost. It's only for 2 or 3 months. And as Toa says, Greg Gabriel is the GOAT. You know, what's funny, Greg, is I still can't get over that the GOAT now means you're the greatest of all time, where when you and I were growing up, if you were the GOAT, you were in trouble.
You know, my nickname when I was a kid in the neighborhood was the GOAT.
Is that right? What was behind that?
Gregory, it was G's. It was, you know, and it was actually Danny Dwayne who started it. Who's a couple years older than me. There's a ton of kids in my neighborhood. And so it was good, gracious, great, damn, glorious, gruesome, Greggy Gabriel, go up, and it just would grow on from there. You know, it was all G's because, you know, my name was GG. So, but for years and years and years, up until I was probably in 8th grade, it was, hey, GOAT, you know.
Well, and now it is a super good thing to be called GOAT, and so many thanks to Toa and the dozens of people. I mean,
I should go back to the old neighborhood, but none of them are there. A lot of these guys are dead now. I mean, you know, we're getting old.
Don't remind me. Don't remind me. So we've also got fresh programming.
That reminds me. I'm sorry to interrupt you. That reminds me of
that
interview when I said all these guys are dead now. Because you know, we used to tape all the interviews. And I wish I ought to call Hendrickson and ask him if they still got him. But one guy, nice kid, running back from a Southern school, and he was well dressed. And then he comes in, he goes, yeah. He goes, we've said, you know, tell us about your upbringing and your friends and neighborhood you grew up in. He goes, well, all my friends are either dead or alive. Okay. Okay.
Congratulations on you being here.
You're 21 and they're either dead or alive. Okay.
That'll clue you in as to what.
There's another kid that we were talking to, and he's just, and you're going to lose me on this, which is all right. He's sitting in the chair, and then all of a sudden he just drops down like this. And it's like you can't even see him. His head's down in between his legs. And, you know, Jerry jumped up after about 2 seconds. He goes, you all right? You all right? He goes, I think I just got bit by a motherfucking scorpion.
Another one.
and it's like, we all start laughing. This is Indianapolis in February, dude. There are no scorpions here.
That is crazy. Oh my goodness. Before we get out of here, Greg, I want to let people know that this Wednesday at, I think it's 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, we got the debut of a new show hosted by Mr. Shorty. It is called Open Mic. It'll be on every couple of weeks or so. And open mic means that there are going to be a lot of you people, barflies, being a part of the show, actually being a major part of the show. Mr. Shorty will be handling your question or asking you questions, and Barflies Bears fans can express their thoughts on what's happening with the Chicago Bears and what could potentially happen. It's going to be a great show. It's this Wednesday night. Watch for it here on the Barroom Network. And the best way to stay on top of everything here at the Barroom Network is just to subscribe to our audio podcast, which you can find anywhere, and to our YouTube channel. That is the best thing. Greg, your Twitter.
Stay on, I got to talk to you for a second. So
okay, your Twitter handle at GGABE football is ever so popular. So if you're not following Greg on Twitter, you are doing yourself a disservice. That is our show for today. We will see you very soon. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Greg.
See you later.